Yeah, I think I say this every time, but I think it's important to say thanks everyone for taking the time to join us today. As you see on the screen, today we're going to focus on setting up your CoachRx index specifically to, let's just call it, improve your workflow. Efficiency will be a part of that, but let's just say we want to really refine workflow in the app. Um, think of the index as as the hub of your organization. Okay, so everything that's housed from an organization standpoint inside of CoachRx is in your index. So just kind of pulling this up on the screen really quick, we're going to kind of walk through probably 90% of these pieces in this sidebar today and talk about best use cases and, well, what they're for, number one, and then best use cases for them. So as you guys go from dashboard, just click this index button. When you click that, this is what we're discussing today. So hub of your organization. So historically, these webinars have been fairly well biased in the direction of current users. So I'm going to attempt to speak to both the new and the current CoachRx user. But as always, the benefit of doing these things live is that you guys can ask questions. So if you do have a question, like Georgia said, set that chat to everyone and drop that question in the chat box, and we'll definitely hit all questions. The only thing I will ask on questions is let's keep them directed at the index just so we can stay hyper focused here. We've been known to kind of go in different directions on these webinars in the past. So I will break this webinar into the following sections. Number one, we're going to talk about using your index to improve your client experience. Okay. Number two, we're going to talk about managing your account libraries. And then number three, we're going to take not a deep dive, but a surface level dive into programs. And then I'll mention it when we get to programs, but we have a more robust webinar that we did in the past where we walked through programs. So maybe we can throw that in the chat box later. Okay, let's dig in. So account libraries. So this is broken into these three sections. So your exercise library, warm-ups and cooldowns, and fitness monitoring. So your exercise library. So exercises connect to your client's exercise calendar when you go in to design a training program. So in this library, you store your entire exercise library to include those videos, of course. So I think we have about 2,000 of those videos that are automatically in every account, but you can also add your own videos from the exercise library section. So just kind of digging over here, I'm just going to click this first exercise. I think this will be Georgia doing some bird dogs. Yep. So this is your exercise library. So we have about 2,000 of these already baked in. But as you kind of get into the flow and as you get designing, you can always add your own directly from this screen. But from a workflow standpoint, whenever you run across an exercise that you or your organization might use frequently and it's not in the library, add it directly from that workout calendar. So if I were to head over to this workout calendar, so this is just like I'm designing a training program in CoachRx. I'm trying to think of something that I know is not in here. Let's go with a front flip. So if I'm designing a front flip and this little video icon has a plus next to it, that means that does not exist in my exercise library. So all I have to do there is click this plus button, add that YouTube or Vimeo link, press save. And then as soon as I press save, that's going to be in my exercise library. Okay, so there's two ways that you can add to your exercise library. You can go to your exercise library in the index and add as many exercises there, or you can just do it and accumulate as you design training programs. So that's from a workflow standpoint. From a value add standpoint, maybe you're a coach that wants to give their clients a more brand-centric experience. Feel free to edit or delete the ones that we uploaded, that we spent all of our time and energy uploading. Go ahead and edit or delete those, and you could just make those your own. So if you don't like the way that the back squat looks and you don't want your clients back squatting like that, feel free to edit that back squat or go ahead and delete that and add your own. Okay, we won't be offended there. So you can look at using exercise library to improve your efficiencies or your workflow in those two ways, or you can use your exercise library to more brand your client experience. Okay, next let's dive into warm-ups and cooldowns. So with warm-ups and cooldowns, so we can add commonly used sets. So I'm just going to call warm-up and cooldowns. I'm going to call those sets. So warm-up and cooldown sets. So you can use those sets to save a ton of time. So for instance, I'd recommend having let's call it a pre-designed warm-up flows, like maybe have like a shoulder prep, a hip prep, an ankle mobility set, a full body dynamic warm-up, a general aerobic warm-up, so on and so forth. Just kind of bake those in. That way, you don't have to reinvent the wheel each time for each client if you're one of those warm-up coaches and your clients really love to go through a certain type of warm-up prior to hitting a training session. I would also recommend using these moments or those moments where, I think we've all probably experienced that, where we have a client with like this weird shoulder thing. And we're just like, well, I want to incorporate like this warm-up set just to kind of get them prepped, get them feeling good, get them feeling loose. And you design like this awesome, like 3 sets, scat pull-ups, passive hangs, whatever the thing is. And you're like, that's a really good one. So why not just hit that button and save that as a warm-up set? If we're to head back to the calendar and I were to add one of those warm-up sets, what was it, like 30-second passive hang, let's call it 10 scat push-ups, and then I'm just going to put ... Maybe there's 4 other exercises there, I don't know. You just click this button. I would just title that like best shoulder prep of all time, and then I would save that to the library. And then every time I go to warm up and I start to type in best, that thing is just going to pop up, and I'm going to click it, and I'm going to move on to my program design. Okay, so I would highly recommend not reinventing the warm-up wheel every single time you're designing training programs for your clients. Just kind of accumulate sets over time in warm-ups as well as in cooldowns.
Carl, I'm just going to jump in for one moment there. The adding demo videos feature for those warm-ups as well is really beneficial. I know it drives me mad having to link demo videos every single session when I'm building out warm-ups. So when you are pre-building those default warm-ups, make sure you link videos in. And we actually just added about 100 different mobility-focused exercises to the exercise videos library. So you could go ahead and link those in. We even have a few things like a hip flow, a hip cool down, shoulder flow, shoulder cool down, things like that. So those are in there for you too.
Yep, absolutely. Good point. So that is warm-ups and cool. I'm not going to hit cooldowns. Same idea as warm-ups. If you have commonly used cooldowns that you use with your clients, feel free to add those. I'm a massive fan of just like a 5-minute general warm-up, and I'm a massive fan of like a 5-minute 90-90 belly breathing. So people that I coach, usually that's the warm-up and cool down they get unless they need something else. All right, digging into fitness monitoring next. So this one's pretty clear, right? So we can use FMEs to save commonly used assessments and assign them to specific clients. So if I were to head back here and I were to go to FME sets, you'll notice that we have a few bucketed already in there. But if you wanted to add your own FME set, you would just name that set, describe that set, put in those metrics specifically there, select your unit of measurement, and then you can save that and assign it to as many or as few clients as you want. You can also assign these individually or specifically right through that calendar. Just like if I'm coaching Georgia and I'm like, well, I have this one assessment that only Georgia will ever do, and that's Georgia's assessment. I can just go ahead and assign that directly from her client calendar. I don't need to do that through the index. But if it's more global and you're going to use it across the organization, you can do that. Or you can create those FME sets right there in your index. And then how that looks, right? So the resistance FME set was one of those. So this is just an example of a client that has a bunch of resistance FME metrics that they've gone through. So I have those results. As those results occur over time, I can click on it. I can view those charts over time. And then we have this handy little structural balance sheet that is baked into CoachRx with all of these resistance pieces, just kind of giving you a nudge like, hey, pay attention to this or pay attention to that. And that's one of the reasons why we have those that resistance FME set already baked in there for you guys. All right, let's take a sharp turn and discuss client experience. So here I'm just going to talk about intake forms, global documents, and weekly check-ins. So first, intake forms, I think we all know what that means, but what we wanted to do is we wanted to give coaches the ability to have the intake as a part of their intake process or onboarding process directly through the app. So each one of your clients will have access to an intake form from their app. So you can make it a part of your onboarding process to require an intake form, like I mentioned, or you don't have to. You can use our default intake form, or you can create a custom intake form from your index. So I'm going to head back over to the index and just give this thing a quick ride. So if I were to click intake forms, you'll have that default form. This default form has 10 questions. I can create a custom intake form. And then whenever you see this blue star, so if I had multiple intake forms, whatever intake form is starred, that is the intake form that is used across our entire organization. All right, next we have documents. So here you can add documents to your account that allows clients to access via their app. So consider adding things such as client SOPs. So if there's specific rules that you want your clients to follow, whether that's around communication, whether that's around consultation, so on and so forth, you can add like a client SOP PDF right there in your documents, and your clients can access that directly through their app. If you want to add a glossary that breaks down how to read your exercise prescriptions, if you're one of those weird coaches that goes reps before sets, maybe your clients don't understand that. Maybe it's a good idea to have that as part of your glossary, how to read resistance training. You can have documents like, on the road nutrition training, or on the road nutrition best practices, on the road training with body weight only, how to track macros, etc. So put any documents inside of there, and that allows complete access to all of your clients inside of the organization. You can also add those documents on a client specific standpoint, and you would do that through the client calendar as well. But as it relates to the index, anything that's in the index from a document standpoint is available across the entire organization. So all of your clients would have access to those. All right, the next piece is weekly check-ins. So you can assign your clients weekly check-ins as another form of, let's call it like accountability in CoachRx. So we have a default weekly check-in template, but you can add as many weekly check-ins as you want. I'd recommend personalizing these check-ins for things like if you have clients that are trying to build habits, if you have clients where you're just like, hey, I want you to reflect on your week. If you have clients where you're like, hey, I just want you to track your weight over time, or whatever the case is, we have those default weekly check-ins in, and then you can create as many weekly check-ins as you'd like inside of the index. So kind of going over there, you have weekly check-in templates. We have our default. If you wanted to add your own, you would just click this button, add weekly, and then you would add that question and then answer type. So we have 3 different answer types. So as your client receives this in their app, it could be a free text field, it can be a rating of 1 to 5, or it can just be a yes or no.
Carl, I'm just going to jump in really briefly on the documents piece. Given that the topic of the webinar today is connected to efficiency, I think so often we think about efficiency in terms of program design and how long it takes us to put together a workout or a week. But we lose so much efficiency in things like conversations on how to read tempo, in things on common, protein sources, ideas for meal planning and things like this. So if you can take the time, put together a nice, robust documents library with those like frequently asked questions and conversations you're having with clients, and be able to direct them there over time. Yes, it takes some time on the front end, but it really is going to make your entire system so much smoother in the long term.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I've seen coaches use that document section as almost like an education hub for their clients as well, where it allows them to scale themselves. So, just imagine building out like a PDF with like FAQs on it, and those FAQs just link out to another page. And anytime your client has a question and you know that it's in the FAQs, very kindly just say like, hey, great question. I get asked that a lot. Visit this link. If it doesn't answer your question directly, let's have a chat on it, or we can discuss it in our next consultation. But yeah, to your point, from an efficiency standpoint, it allows a coach to scale themselves up. It allows a coach to not have to answer the same questions over and over and over. And I think more importantly, it gives a coach an opportunity to go above and beyond and start educating their clients.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, we are rolling. So last thing we have here is programs. So like I said, we did a lengthy webinar a few months back where we really dug into programs. We dug into program types, functionality of programs, how to build program storefronts and sell your programs online. I think we actually did a live demo where we completely built a storefront and we built programs and we sold our programs online right there in that webinar. So Georgia dropped that link in. So if you guys want to dig deeper into that, because we're going to be pretty surface level today, feel free to go back and watch that webinar. Okay, so programs. So I think we're all pretty familiar with what this is, right? Like, we have this idea that we want to build out this, this hypertrophy program, or we have an aerobic template in our brain that we want to apply to a particular client, or maybe we have 15 clients that we want to assign the same aerobic progression. Programs allows us to do this. It allows us to not have to recreate the wheel every single time we go in and design a training program. So to provide, actually, let me head over to programs and pull this up because I think it'll make more sense if you're looking at it. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to help coaches. We're like, okay, how can we, use this as an opportunity to inspire coaches? How can we use this as an opportunity to give a coach a nudge and, quite frankly, educate coaches? So to provide that value, we frequently add programs to this section, and we don't just like inundate your program section with this. We give you the ability to download those programs. So we have a bunch of resistance programs. We have a bunch of aerobic, anaerobic programs that you can just click on, download that program. And download doesn't mean that it gives you like a PDF. It just it's uploaded into your account. So Georgia, I believe we go one to, how many do we go a month?
Yeah, it's 1 to 2 per month, just depending on the month.
Yeah, 1 to 2 per month, depending on the month. So we have that. And then once we start digging into programs, and you guys saw it on that initial screen, we wanted to kind of spar them out a little bit differently. So if I click on add a program, you just have your typical things, right? It's like, what is the name of the program? What is the description of the program? Once I save this, I'm going to get taken to a calendar and I start adding my program design. But the thing I want to talk about here is the different types of programs that we have. So we added this feature called live programs probably about 6 months ago, as we noticed that there was a pretty big hole in the market from this standpoint. So a live program is intended to take a number of clients through the same program together on the same day. Think about it as like a live calendar. Okay. So I'm trying to think of like a platform that does, think about like a Wodify. I think that's the example that I used. If anyone out there uses a platform like Wodify, the calendar is live, clients are dropped in, they see the workout for today, and workouts are pushed to their app as you design. Okay, so that's a live program. Everyone's going through that program together. Okay. So that is like the newer feature, the hole in the market that we identified in platforms. And then we have your standard programs as well. So think about these as more of like just like templates, right? So they're static. You drop clients in. The expectation is that they start on day 1 and they go to, let's call it day 30 if it's a 30-day program, and then they're done. That's it. Okay. So if you're selling programs online, or you're applying programs to your clients, it's really important to understand the differences between a standard template and a live program. A standard template, those are meant to end. Those aren't meant to like go into perpetuity. A live program, those are meant to go until you stop designing for whatever reason, or you take a client out. Okay. So again, highly recommend, because I just went really surface there, I would highly recommend checking out that webinar that Georgia dropped. Georgia, do you have anything to add to programs?
No,
Or is that
I wanted to ask you a question, Carl, particularly around these templates that are in, as well as when coaches decide to build out their own 4-week full body resistance program in their programs library. If they're working with individual design clients, how would you recommend leveraging those program templates to increase their efficiency in individual design?
Yeah, great question. I would look at it kind of like I kind of walk through the warm up idea. Because I think, let's face it, for a lot of our clients, if we're working with a particular target market, the program design, the framework of the program design is extremely similar, right? You might be doing resistance training 3 times a week. Maybe it's full body resistance. Maybe you're doing aerobics, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And that's it, right? So I think that there's a lot of benefit in having frameworks built out inside of your programs that you can just assign and then personalize after the assignment of, right? And when I say frameworks, I mean like we're doing these patterns on these days, we're doing this type of aerobic progression. Because let's face it, a map 9 or like 30-minute pieces of cyclical aerobic progressions, there's not a lot of personalization that goes into those outside of the effort and connecting it to what does map 9 or 30 minutes of aerobic work really look like for you. So I would use it in that aspect, as well as if you do have a special case, right? Let's say that you just onboarded an Olympic weightlifter and you're like, man, I don't coach a lot of Olympic weightlifters, and it takes you a lot of time to build out those programs, and you're wrapping your brain around like progression for Olympic weightlifting versus vitality and health, and you put a lot of time and effort into that. Why not just paste that into a program and just kind of save that as like a framework that you can refer to and just name it something specific to whatever that progression protocol was. So I like programs as almost like a glossary or a reminder as well. So when you have a client like that again, maybe you don't just like assign them to that and set it and forget it, but you can draw inspiration from that other program that you wrote. And that's what I mean when I say recreating the wheel, because I think we've all sat behind a computer and we get like halfway through a design and our brain's like, you've wrote this same design 150 times, right? Maybe you could have started 25% or 50% in already. So yeah, that would be my take there.
I appreciate that answer, Carl. That's what I was looking for.
Awesome. And I will kick it over to you, Georgia.
Yeah, so guys, if you're not already a subscriber for CoachRx, really the best thing to do from here is to start your free trial. I will drop a link in the chat box to be able to do it, but if you head to our website, you can sign up from almost any page there. After you start that free trial, you're going to get connected with our Coach Success Manager, and you do have an opportunity to connect with her by email or even go ahead and book a demo call, and she'll be able to ensure you best understand how to use our systems to maximize your efficiency. So there is that option for additional support after beginning that free trial and going through it. We have a ton of free resources as well. If you're one of those, I like to figure it out for myself type folks, you absolutely can. And again, I'll drop a link to that free resources page in the chat box. You can go through there. Carl did a very detailed platform walkthrough video. We have a free guide that really breaks down all of the different things we recommend doing initially when you sign into that account. And there's a ton of other additional articles and things like that that you can go ahead and explore. So again, from here, if you're not a user, now is this is your nudge to go ahead, get in there, start that free trial, and let us know what you think.